Hello and welcome. I am Matt Roddy, and this is the Greater Prescott podcast, where we talk about, you guessed it, all things Greater Prescott. In this episode, I'm excited to have my friend and life coach, Tim Demme. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about Greater Prescott are the people. And I really feel that it's the people who live here that make it what it is. Yes, we have a wonderful downtown and we have a ton of outdoor activities and things like that. It also requires people to keep it at those as central and as usable as they are and things like that. And so everyone has their own unique position in doing that. And I'm excited to get into what you do for a living and why you do it and what drew you to the Greater Prescott area, because that's what makes this area so special. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, you guys.
Right.
Please begin by telling the listeners a 5 or so minute backstory on where you're born and raised, and a little bit of your childhood and into your adult age.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. I was born in Buffalo, New York, and but our family moved to Phoenix when I was in high school. I have 7 brothers and sisters, and so there's 8 of us, 8 kids, 10 of us all together, and only half of us moved to Phoenix because my older siblings were out of the house by then. And so then that sort of precipitated quite a few moves for me. I've moved around quite a bit. From
Tell us.
Phoenix, I went to Southern California for college. I was in LA for college, and then I was in San Diego for a dozen years after that, and never thought of San Diego as home. And eventually found myself at home in southern Vermont.
Okay.
So moved from San Diego back to southern Vermont. Didn't really think I would ever move back east from the west, but found home in Vermont. Okay. And then so spent another dozen years there, and was from Vermont, moved to Woodstock, New York for just a short time. And I guess I share all the different places and all the different moves because I have really oriented to place for a long time. Like place has been really, really important to me. Like I said, I was, everybody loves San Diego. San Diego is a beautiful place, but
I was married there. Yeah. It's very fond memories.
But I never felt at home there. Okay. And literally the first day I set foot in Brattleboro, Vermont, I'm like, this is home.
Yeah.
So
wonderful.
Yeah. So I've really oriented to place a lot. But when it was time to, like I said, move from Vermont to Woodstock, New York, and was only there for about a year and a half. When it was time to leave, the relationship that I had moved there for was over, and I wasn't particularly drawn to that place. So even though I had a really lovely community there, like I just didn't feel at home in that place, and I really had no idea where to go. Had no idea where I was going to go, but the divine guidance that I got was to wait.
Okay.
Just wait. I knew that, and it was really tempting to, even though I didn't want to be there in that place, it was tempting to sort of just nail something down. It was really, really tempting to, I want to know where I'm going to be, so I just waited with the uncertainty, and my parents had retired to Prescott Valley about 16 years ago, and I'd been out, occasionally, regularly to visit, but never had any interest in Prescott Valley. Like I really didn't, Prescott Valley is a lot different than Prescott. I really didn't know Prescott.
We have a very diverse area, like you and I have talked about before.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I was never drawn to this area. I was never drawn to this place, even though I'd been out, visiting my parents quite a few times. And then coincidentally, and I don't believe in coincidence, but coincidentally, at the time that I didn't know where I was going and ready to go somewhere, my mom and dad moved into assisted living, and I came out to visit. I came out to see what I could do to help, and was just clear that this was the place for me to be, and Prescott in particular, was the place for me to be, and in part, and it was so I got to spend the last year of my dad's life close by, and so I got to see them a lot. I had never lived near, geographically near my parents as an adult, and so, and so there was this understanding that I had that the Prescott was the place for me to be, and at least in part, it was about being, close to my mom and dad, being near my dad during the last year of his life. But I knew as well that there was something more to it. Yeah. In fact, when I came out to look for a place to live, to look around at where I might want to live, it just fell into place like that. Like I'd given myself a whole week. I really didn't think I was going to actually find a place. I just wanted to look around at different areas and kind of get a sense of where I might want to be. And the morning that I flew out, I got an email in my inbox, saying this house is available for rent. And I'm like, well, that's it. There it is right there. So I got here on Monday. I went to look at that house on Tuesday, and was like, that's it.
Wow.
And so it just was. When
was that?
That was December of 2017. Okay. So I moved out here in January of 2018, and I live in the Mountain Club area now, which is the pine in the pine trees. Yep. I love living in the ponderosa pines. Yep.
Another reason this area is so diverse. You can go from Prescott Valley, which it's actually quite hilly out there.
Yeah.
And then get into Prescott, and all of a sudden there's a forest.
And it's really, really different. Like
it's completely different.
It's different from just down the block. It's different from, so many other areas of Prescott.
Yeah. Another thing, actually, that what you said reminded me of is a lot of people in the Prescott area aren't from the Prescott area. So whenever you're out at the square talking to people, you'll find that they're from another state. And so there's just a lot of different... but it's not transient in that sense, because I lived in Phoenix, a very transient city. People from not nearly as many people born and raised there as what had moved there for most of the time work, and the cost of living and a lot of things. However, it felt like a transient city where it was harder to connect. People were, it was different. Nothing wrong with it.
That was part of my experience in San Diego as well. Like there was 1 year that I was there where a whole handful or so of friends all happened to live in the same neighborhood. And so there was this, so I definitely did have more of an experience of community that year. But then, very quickly everyone moved on. Within a year or two, everyone had moved on. Mm-hmm.
Probably largely to do with the metropolitan areas in general. May have a little more of that. Yeah. But anyways, tell us a little bit about the type of work you've done, and that will bring us forward to what you now do.
Very good. The type of work I've done, I out of college, I went to work for the government for the state of California, and it was with the intention of getting some experience that would allow me to go to graduate school in law. And the short story is that I got diverted from that path, and then really had no idea what I was going to do. But I would say one thing that I was clear about early on was that I was dedicated. I would use the word dedicated to finding a way to make a living doing something that I loved that made a difference for others.
Okay.
And so
so you knew that, or you had that sense years ago.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I was working. I was one of the government jobs that I had for the state of California was working for the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Okay.
And that was well, it wasn't work that I loved.
Yeah.
And I had never contemplated the idea of being self-employed.
Okay.
Like that just wasn't it just had never occurred to me. It wasn't in my background so much. But turns out that's what there was to do. I tried exploring a bunch of different things, like what could I do that I would, could enjoy, that I could make a living at and make a difference for others. And eventually I started working with a life coach myself.
Okay.
And that was when it hit me, like very quickly, it hit me like, oh, well, I think this is what I'm looking for to do myself.
To set the context, how old are you and when did that happen? Well, I'm curious of kind of the time frame of things.
Yeah. I'm 52.
Okay.
And I worked for the state of California for 10 years before I left. And then I was it was another, let's see. It was another few years. It was another few years after that. So I think it was 2004 that I first started working with a coach.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me that this is what I want to do. And so I took my formal coach training in 2005.
Okay. All right. So then have you been a life coach since 2005?
I've been a life coach since 2005.
Okay.
So it'll be 15 years this year.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. So I would like Tim to explain now what your occupation is as we sit.
Very good.
I want to hit the pause button. The disclosure, Tim is a friend, and he has also been my life coach. We go to church together. We sparked up a conversation, randomly meeting when he told me he was a life coach, and there was something in my heart that desired that idea. And the more I talked with you and learned what you did and why you do it, the more I thought that's what I want and need right now. I've been in a season recently where I've started a new job and we haven't been able to meet, but we met for a while. I mean, over a year?
I think it was over a year.
Yeah, I think it was over a year. So just to disclose, Tim has also been my life coach. And so this is also just a fascinating type of work that you do. So I'm excited for you to share about what you do.
Yeah, as I recall, you were all over it when we first met.
Yep.
Very interested. Well, so in general, life coaching is about it's about accomplishing results. It's about accomplishing results that are outside of what's already known to us, outside of what's already familiar to us. I'd like to use the word unprecedented results. It's, things we haven't done, places we haven't been before, accomplishments that we haven't accomplished before. So that's what, basically what life coaching is and about. I like to say that there's two different hemispheres. That coaching fundamentally involves two different hemispheres. One of which is facilitative, meaning that it's about identifying your objective, where you want to go to, what you want to accomplish, and then creating a plan to accomplish that with milestones and action plans and all that. So there's that whole facilitative, the more of the action-based hemisphere.
I want to eat better, I want to exercise, and now help me put together a plan for it.
Where do you want to get to, and what action is there to take to get there? And then the other hemisphere has to do much more with awareness, about becoming aware, mostly about becoming aware of our automatic or default operating systems, sometimes called survival mechanisms, like the ways that early on that we learn to get by in life, survive in life, adapt to our circumstances, even produce results, but they're not ultimately they're not they have limitations. As useful as they can be, as useful as they were,
have been.
Yeah, they ultimately at some point they get in the way of other possibilities for our lives.
Okay. I would imagine one of the things I was most interested in was that first hemisphere you talked about. What was it called?
Facilitative.
Mm-hmm. There are goals that I have. There are things that I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to do them on my own.
Yeah.
It's the other hemisphere that probably, and I can't speak for most of your clients, but I wonder how many of them come in under the first, I want to get things done and do certain things, and then realize, wow, there's also a lot more opportunity that I wasn't aware of, or the way I've been operating is not best suited for other things. So it's fascinating.
That's right. I would agree. It's we mostly can't see. We mostly can't perceive for ourselves how we're operating, where we are operating from, because it's just the water we swim in, so to speak.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So and so it often takes someone else to point out, this strategy that you have serves you well in some areas, but it's not going to work in this other area where you're aiming to accomplish this thing.
Yeah. Explain the difference between a life coach and a therapist.
That is often because there are still a lot of people who are unfamiliar with life coaching, and so I do find that it's helpful to understand life coaching by comparing and contrasting with therapy. And the way that I like to say it is that coaching is primarily, it's first and foremost about getting somewhere. It's about accomplishing something. It's about producing results. And only secondarily or incidentally is it about healing and processing of emotions. Yeah. Whereas therapy, and again, these are generalizations, but there's
some truth to them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would say they're generally true. Therapy is the other way around. Therapy is primarily about healing, primarily about processing emotions, and only secondarily or incidentally about getting somewhere or accomplishing something.
Okay. I think that's a really important distinction to make, because they can accomplish some of the same things, but that absolutely start from a different foundation. And so in my case, I've done both therapy when I was in college and now life coach with you. And yeah, two very to drastically different experiences, I needed the therapy back then.
Mm-hmm.
I could have benefited for some life coaching in that sense as well. But so it's important for you to be able to distinguish, well, here's what I'm not, which are largely a lot of the things a therapist can help people with.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic because my my emphasis now as a coach, I think it was about 4.5 years ago, it occurred to me that for me, coaching is a ministry. And this was after I'd been coaching for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And it took some time for me to really understand what that meant. And again, coincidentally or not, it was literally the month before I moved to Prescott that I clearly understood for myself what coaching as ministry means for me, and had just completed the mission statement for coaching as ministry. Literally the month before I moved to Prescott. And I would say that for one thing, faith is fundamental to coaching as ministry, and it's not, I would say, as a rule inside of life coaching in general, inside of professional life coaching in general.
Set the stage for this, because this is a big deal with respect to why you do what you do now, because you've definitely shifted in terms of coaching as what's the term? Coaching as corporate, coaching as
professional coaching
versus
coaching as ministry.
Coaching as ministry.
Mm-hmm.
We're all familiar with professionals who do things. You pay, I pay a price to you, and you provide something for me.
Mm-hmm.
The model that you now operate under is slightly different from that, and there's reasons and nuances. So please share, because I think it's a game changer.
Yeah. And I mentioned that I'd been coaching for 10 years before this awareness came to me. And what I didn't say is that I'd been struggling for 10 years in a way, and struggling with even saying that who I am as a life coach and what I do is life coaching. There was, at the time, I didn't understand it exactly. I can look back now and say that there was something that was out of alignment for me in inside of what professional coaching is in general in the world, and so then it came to me that for me coaching is a ministry, and the distinctions that it took another really 2 years to understand for myself what is distinct from coaching as a ministry and professional life coaching, and there's two fundamental differences. One is that I would say professional life coaching is, in general, it's mostly available to the people with the most resources. So to a degree, it's exclusive. Whereas coaching as ministry is inclusive, meaning that it's available to whomever is willing, regardless of financial resources. And the other fundamental difference is faith. That again, my experience of professional life coaching is that it's not devoid of faith, but faith is not fundamental. And so, meaning that, meaning that even, well, I would say that we don't even know ourselves well enough necessarily to say where we want to get to in life. So I've been talking about how, life coaching it's about getting somewhere. It's about accomplishing something. It's about producing results. And I would say that for many of us, we don't even know ourselves well enough to we can certainly have an idea of where we want to go, what we want to do, where we want to get to, but does it come from? But where does that come from? Where does that desire, where does that interest come from? Yeah. And so that's where I find that's where faith comes in. That's where the focus of my work with people now is to focus on, connection with God. And through that relationship, I would say two things. So first of all, the ideas for the results that we have can be inspired, so that they're not necessarily coming from our minds, from our own wants, our own, but they can actually come from like through a divine connection. And then I still say it's still even if we don't know ourselves that well, we can still set out to accomplish something. We can still have a destination in mind for ourselves and to go for it. And it's very valuable, even if we don't, inside of coaching as ministry. I would say that the emphasis of that is not necessarily on getting to where we're aiming for. It's not necessarily about getting that particular result, which I would say is more of the emphasis in professional coaching. In professional coaching, there's more emphasis on, you say what you want and you get there. And so I find that methodology is really valuable. It's really important to set out on a journey and to set out for a destination. But what's more important about getting there is getting to know ourselves. And from getting to know ourselves and in our relationship with the source, then we will have results. We'll have outcomes. Those results might be very different than we set out for, but they'll be good.
Absolutely.
And they'll probably be a lot easier too. There'll probably be a lot less effort to attain whatever there is to attain when we're truly aligned with the divine.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
You touched on it earlier. Tell us why you do what you do. I shared with you before we started, you guys can buy a cup of coffee from anywhere. One of the reasons I absolutely love going to Dutch Brothers is they are so stinking friendly. Uh-huh. They're out there taking your order in the drive-through line, or if you walk up, they're the most friendly, fun. They ask you how you're doing, and all of you've talked to them for 5 minutes, and you're going, you just kind of lose track of time. That's what makes Dutch Brothers special.
I haven't been there. I'll have to try it.
Oh, Tim, you're missing out. It's just a fantastic place. You are a life coach. There are other life coaches.
Yeah.
However, there's more to it than just what you do. So speak to your why.
Yeah, it does, and it's evolved. It's been 15 years now, so the why has evolved. Still, fundamentally, I would say the why is so that I and others, like that, all of us, basically all of us, can provide for ourselves and our families in life, doing something that we love, that contributes to each other, that contributes to the world. Like that, I really think that's how it's supposed to be, and that's how we were made to be. Yeah, that's it, basically.
Yep. No, it's interesting because I've also come a long ways in terms of figuring out my why. And it largely, regardless of what job I've been doing at the time, is to help people. Like I get a high from helping people.
Yeah, and
everyone's different, but there's just something about it that I can't get enough of almost. And so it's been like that whether I've worked at golf courses or landscaping or at the hot tub company. It's just and that's ultimately why I do that's my purpose, I guess. It just so happens it works out differently in different life scenarios and seasons.
And I do think there is something that we are all uniquely made for. And I don't mean that and I don't mean by that you were meant to drive a garbage truck and I was meant to, like, it's not about doing any one thing in particular, but it's about we each have unique talents, and it's about expressing those talents, and they can be expressed in lots of different ways.
So many ways.
But it's about expressing those talents and, providing for ourselves, providing for our family, and I think pretty much as a rule, like I would say that it goes without saying that if we are expressing our talents, then other people are going to benefit from that.
Absolutely. I'm really, really intrigued by an artist, and not one who necessarily paints, but who simply does their job to the best of their ability because they love it and the benefit it can bring other people. So literally, the garbage truck guy can be his own, in a sense, artist. It's a general term for not someone who paints. I mean, we call artists we use the term artist for a lot of different people, whether it's a painter or a musician and so on and so forth. But there's a certain type of artist you are as well, which is just, it's fascinating. And I think one of the most important things that I hear from you, it's really easy, I think, to get caught up in attending a life coach, and in a sense, how selfish, maybe from the get-go, or just from not knowing truly what happens, that it's selfish. And there can be it can be challenging to continually look inside ourselves. And somewhat empty. What I'm saying is it has to also include others. And that's one amazing thing about an artist is that it is not just about them. There's obviously part of it, and the outworking brings benefit to other people and pleasure to other people. And so, and I think you said it, people initially come because they want to accomplish things, which often, some of that is personal, like I simply just want to start exercising, so I need a plan. But what you learn is that in that other hemisphere, other people then get included. And there's just this awesome, I don't even know the word. There's just a lot of amazing things going on when it starts happening.
I think we were made to be creative. You talk about being artists. I think we were made to be creative, and and maybe mostly because for reasons of survival, I would say, for reasons of survival, most of us learn to believe that being our creative selves is not what will allow us to survive in life.
Right.
Maybe is like the most basic way to put it. Yeah. And ultimately, I believe that that's not true. That being our creative selves not only can allow ourselves to survive in life, but it's what it's what allows us individually to thrive, and for the community to thrive. Like the more that each of us can be our really unique creative selves, I think the more that everyone thrives.
Amen. Yeah, I just did a podcast with Tracy from Black Butterfly Artisan Chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
At her heart, she is an artist. It just so happens she does it with chocolate. But the work that she does and the pleasure that it brings others is phenomenal. And I think that's what you're speaking to, that the power of doing and being who you were created to be. And it's not just about the person. It's
Right.
about much, much more.
Yeah.
That's the why. And I think it's just beautiful. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Let's segue. You have lived in Prescott now going on
Almost 2.5 years.
2.5. So yeah, coming up on 3. Tell us about your greater Prescott experience and what it is about this area that you love. Because you've come to love.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, my business is not really Prescott centric, and so it's like most of the people I talk to, most of the people I work with are by phone,
Right.
by video conference.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the only people you've consistently in person met with.
Yeah, there's just a few, and so really it isn't Prescott centric, and yet, me being in Prescott, me being in a place like Prescott where I feel at home, and where I can, where I live is 1.5 miles from the square downtown and 1 mile from the border of the National Forest. So I literally live on the, everything that downtown has to offer to me is immediately available to me, and everything that the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of acres of national forest has available to me is right outside my doorstep. And it just is really what I work a lot. I spend a lot of time on the phone, and I spend a lot of time talking with people, working with people, supporting people to to transform their lives, to provide for them.
It's not light work in that respect. I mean, it's not entirely heavy, but it's challenging.
It is challenging, and I'm not. Well, it's what being in a place like Prescott is what sources me. It provides It provides so much for. It provides what I need to do. To be the best at the work that I do, and to do more of the work that I do, like to continually support more people to
the best of your ability.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, tell us about a few things in the greater Prescott area that you do. Let me find your favorites.
I think the biggest thing is I love the trails. Okay, I love the trails, and try to get out every week. Actually, one of my favorites is I love the Thumb Butte Trail, the trail that goes up and around Thumb Butte. I aim to do that every Thursday afternoon after work.
Good work.
I aim to get up there and do that trail, and it's just I love it. It's one of my favorite times of the week.
Okay.
I always come down the other side of the mountain having resolved something in my mind.
It's amazing what the outdoors do.
Yeah.
Every time I go camping, which is not frequently enough, there's this moment where I go, why do I not get out more?
Exactly. Yeah. And I love, and if I, like I said, I do that, I have my little Thumb Butte routine every Thursday evening, and but I love to get out and walk in the mountain club area, in the Ponderosas, and then just all the different trails. I love the Granite Mountain trails and the there's Prescott has the 50-mile loop.
Yes.
Like I tell people about that, and they're like, 50 miles of trails that encircle Prescott. That's fantastic. Like, that's so rare and so precious.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the outdoors that's the big thing
spot.
for me. But I love that it's a small town. I love that it's a friendly town, that it's really easy to get to know people, and the it's kind of funny to say, but the downtown square is so picturesque. Like, it's such a picturesque place. And all of the independent businesses in Prescott are really refreshing as well. I don't know, it kind of, in a way, harkens back to a simpler time. I don't know if
it absolutely does.
It's just It's really nice to see all of the independent businesses and there's I think what I'm trying to, there's just an atmosphere to it. It's a bit hard. It's a bit difficult to articulate. It's like, well, I don't know. How do I explain it? It just feels good, we've got a square, and we've got big cottonwood trees, and we've got, friendly people, and it's mostly quiet.
Yep.
Well, but it's not too quiet. Like,
No,
there's enough happening.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult to articulate. It's just, it has such a great atmosphere. It's a vibe, I guess people would say.
A vibe. It is. It is absolutely a vibe. And I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, where I lived for 18 years. Then I moved to Phoenix, where I was for 17 years. And then I moved up here. And I remember one of the first times that I vacationed up here, I thought I was in a different world.
It is. It is.
Yes. And
even it's great. I mean, because we've got Prescott Valley, and we've got all the, the stores that are out there, and it's great to have that.
It is really convenient to have certain amenities.
Yeah. And still somehow, like, Prescott feels like this a bit of a secluded, separate space.
Isolated, or
and it probably has a lot to do with, like, being surrounded by, on like three sides by all the national forests, but it just has this and the word isolated kind of, there's a it just feels like there's a containment to it that just feels good. It's like being in a nest or something.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's probably one of the top reasons that people do enjoy either visiting here or living here, is just, and it's hard to put into words it's because it's not exactly just one thing. It's a bunch of different things.
Yeah, more of a feel than
definitely
anything.
Yep. All right. I have a few questions for you. This is the rapid fire question section. So you just got to give me the answer that's at the top.
All right.
The
I'll try
tip
not
of
to
your
think
tongue.
about it too much.
Favorite thing about Greater Prescott?
The trails.
Favorite restaurant in Greater Prescott?
Oh gosh, I can't remember the name.
Tell us about it.
It's like the farm to table.
Farm Provisions. Fantastic.
I only ate there once, but I loved it.
Oh, Ryan.
Oh my gosh. Oh, can I say, I love limoncello too.
Limoncello.
And Gato Azul. Oh, that was 3. You asked me for 1.
Moving from South Scottsdale, where Old Town is a restaurant mecca, I remember thinking, I'm really going to lose out on a lot of great restaurants. And we have a lot of great restaurants up here.
Great restaurants.
And I think it largely comes down to, they are, I always call them mom and pop. They're oftentimes husband, wife owned, and they're just very passionate about their food.
And good at it.
And very good at it.
Yeah.
What's the one thing on your Greater Prescott bucket list?
I haven't made that list yet, but the first thing that comes to mind is to do the circle trail, the 50-mile trail.
Yep. What are 3 words to describe living in Prescott?
Peaceful, beautiful, and quiet.
If you weren't a life coach, then what would you be doing?
I might be living on top of a mountain. Not necessarily a hermit.
Okay. Move to the Himalayas.
Or I don't need to go to the Himalayas. No.
So what would you do?
What would I do?
I mean, what do hermits do?
I wouldn't call myself a hermit because that sounds too antisocial, and I'm not antisocial. But what I would do, so I would commune with God is what I would do.
Gotcha. Last question. What's your favorite summer activity in Greater Prescott?
The first thing that came to mind is I love the farmer's market. It seems kind of weird to say that that's my favorite summer activity, but maybe it is.
What else comes to mind?
You know what? I love camping. Yeah, and there's something about camping in the summer in Prescott than camping other times of the year. It's just, tad bit warmer.
Yep.
Which makes it better.
It does. We just bought a family tent.
Oh, you did?
Just came earlier this week. So, yes, we're excited to get out and enjoy the outdoors. And it's amazing from where, let's just say the square. From the square, you can drive 15 minutes and get to a bunch of amazing campgrounds. And that's another just huge benefit to being here. You don't have to drive very far, yet you're out. It's going to be quiet. You're going to see wildlife.
And stars. Oh, I love that too, that we have, that we have the low light.
Yes.
That we have.
Yeah, when we were in Phoenix, our oldest, Wyatt, didn't really know stars. And then we moved here, and one night it hit Emily and I because he made a comment about the stars. And, oh, yeah, these are stars. And we get to see them. You guys, thank you very much for listening to the Greater Prescott podcast. It is people like Tim who make the Greater Prescott area what it is. It's the activities that we have talked about that make this area so, we believe, wonderful. We are excited to live here and to continue doing those things and helping future generations to be able to do that. That's what we love and are excited about. So, Tim,
absolutely,
I genuinely appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing. Tell people how they can get a hold of you if they are interested in life coaching.
Probably best by email, which is ExodusCoaching@gmail.com.
Okay, I'll put it up.
And that's probably the best way.
If you have any questions, because that's where I started with you. I have questions. I don't know exactly what you do, and frankly, I don't exactly know what I want either.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something you encounter early on is clients think they know, they have a feeling. Yeah, they can't. It's hard to express.
Sometimes people really do know, but there are plenty of times people don't. I just know I want to be headed somewhere. I'm not quite sure where or what, though.
Yeah. Everyone, thank you very much for listening to the Greater Prescott podcast, and we will see you later.
Thank you, Matt.